My name, my name's Elizabeth Paris, and I'm the chair of the Didcot Powerhouse Fund. And we also have on this call Susanna Hobbs from Oxfordshire Community Foundation, and also Lucinda, who supports me with Powerhouse. So really the purpose of today is to give you a chance to hear a bit of an overview of Powerhouse if you haven't come across it before, but also an opportunity to ask some questions of us. So please feel free to ask whatever questions that you would like. So let me start off by saying that when you're thinking about applying to Powerhouse, and I see some familiar names on the call, but I also see some people who haven't applied before, the most important thing is probably to make sure that you're eligible for the grant. So the best way to check that you're eligible is to go to the Didcot Powerhouse page on OCF, and Susanna, I think, is going to put that page in the chat. It's the same page where you get the link to apply. Please check that you are eligible. Every year we get applications from people who aren't eligible. And I always feel so sad because I've spent a lot of my sort of Sunday afternoons writing grants and bid applications, and I know it's incredibly time consuming, and I hate to think of people spending that time when they're not eligible. One of the most important criteria for eligibility, of course, is the fact that this is a place-based fund, and so at least 90% of your beneficiaries must be in the powerhouse area, and that is Didcot and the surrounding villages. So it doesn't have to be all of that area, but the beneficiaries have to be somewhere within that area. There's also a map up on the OCF page. So please do have a look at that and about eligibility. We often get a question at this point that says, if we've had a grant before, can we apply again? And the answer is yes. Indeed, we have had some charities have grants over several years, but we obviously look to see the caliber of reporting and impact and everything else around the project in previous years. But we do encourage previous applicants to apply. So another of the important criteria is that this is for a specific project where you're going to be able to measure impact. This is not a grant that is for sort of general overheads or just staffing or just going into plugging a gap in your budget. Obviously, a percentage of overheads can go against the budget, but this is for something that wouldn't happen without this grant. So the way that the Powerhouse application process works is that we have two stages of application. The first stage, which is what you can see online at the OCF, is a form called an expression of interest, where you tell us as a sort of overview what it is that you would like to do to apply for the grant. And I think that the reason that we do it in two stages is so that you're not having to spend too much time on that first expression of interest stage. But I do encourage you there to be specific about the project and to give us a sense of what your impact is going to be. So we're using that to get a feel for whether this is something we're going to be able to fund. So typically in the past few years, the applications have exceeded the amount of funds we can give out. We've typically funded about 40% of applications, and the most competitive stage is at that first stage, that expression of interest. So even though we're not asking you to give us a huge amount of detail at that stage, still pitch it as strongly as you can. The theme this year is support for those who need it most. Now, that is intentionally, perhaps not as specific as other years, but we really are focusing on need it most. So this is trying to plug a really urgent need or gap within this powerhouse area. The grant panel, which is made up of a whole group of people with local knowledge of the powerhouse area, then look at all of those expressions of interest to decide which we want to take through to final bid. Now, if you have applied before, you'll see that one difference this year compared to previous years is that on the expression of interest, we have asked if you are not physically based within the powerhouse area or actively providing services to the powerhouse area, are the services you're going to provide going to duplicate what is already being provided by another charity in the area? Or if not, how do you complement? And that's because we really don't want duplication. We want collaborative working. So please do, if you're new to the powerhouse area, please do think about how you set that out. From that first grants panel, we then select usually a bit on behalf of the applicants, and we take you through to the second round. All the dates for these are up on the OCF website. That second round, we ask for more detail about your project, your bid. In particular, we're asking what impact will you achieve and what will be the top 3 impact measurements? How will you measure that impact? And, what are you going to do to achieve that measurement? Those 3 impact measurements, we're then going to ask you to report back on at the end of the project. Some of the people who get to final bid stage are also asked to present to the panel as well. And then we select the grant winners, and all of those are announced towards the end of March. And the funding, for those of you that are successful, will come through at the end of March. We will then ask you to sort of give us an update on how you're doing after 3 months. That's really a check-in to say, is everything going okay? Because we do understand that sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, your plan was to recruit 10 volunteers and actually 3 months in, it's proving harder than you thought. We understand that. Don't worry about telling us that you hit an obstacle. We completely understand. Come back, tell us, we'll see how we can help. And then we ask you again in December, where have you got to in December? Most projects end at the end of the year, but some of them, say if they're running on a school year, might go over till the following March or even to the following July. So that, I hope, gives you a bit of an overview. So I'm going to pause there and open up for questions. So please feel really comfortable about asking me anything you're not sure about. There must be something that you're not sure about. Joanna, you've unmuted yourself. Go ahead and ask a question.
I'm new to Powerhouse. I'm here on behalf of the International Cafe Didcot, which runs at Didcot Baptist Church. It's run by a group of people from different churches, including Didcot Baptist, where I'm based. My first question is just on eligibility. Can churches apply?
Okay, so what I suggest, rather than going into a lot of detail here, it really depends what type of organization you are. And I suggest you should probably have a conversation with OCF just to check that, or we'll take that one offline, Joanna.
Sorry, who did I have a conversation with?
So I would say, can we take that one offline? Because I think we need to get more details about exactly what kind of organization you are and check that with OCF. So Suzanne, if we can make a note of that's one that I think we should ask Sarah to get in touch with on. There is always the possibility, Joanna, of a sort of a small grant. We do have these small grants where people don't exactly fit the eligibility of up to 500. But if we may, also email me, Joanna, and let's take that one offline, if we may.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, Bill, I can see you have a question. Go ahead. Hello, Bill. I can see you've got a raised hand.
Right.
Bill, yes, go ahead.
Right. Good afternoon, Elizabeth. I'm representing Didcot Bowls Club, and we're looking to have club improvements on a self-help basis. Is that a project that we're going to apply for funding for?
So Bill, first of all, we need to check whether the club itself is eligible. So again, I'd point you towards that page that Susanna has put up in the chat in terms of eligibility. So it's typically, charities, CICs that are eligible, and this is something that is controlled by OCF. So that would be the first thing. And the second thing is, I would say, looking at the theme of, and obviously you as a former mayor and are very much aware of this, the theme being, supporting those who need it most.
Yeah.
Right? So if you want to apply, you would really need to be very convincing in terms of, what is the impact, what's the benefit, and all of that in your application.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Claire, I think you're the next raised hand.
Yeah, thank you. I was just trying to pin down the difference between sort of day-to-day running costs, and it might be one of these ones is better as an offline conversation as well. But I'm helping a community group that run a local venue, and they really need to do some serious work on things like governance and management and getting themselves sort of in a better state as an organisation. Just again, on the spot, is that something that would be eligible for the grant, or is that more kind of day-to-day overhead costs that you would? We need to make that into a project, really, rather than a.
Yes. So Claire, which organisation is this?
It's the Northbourne Centre, the Northbourne Community Centre.
Oh, right, yes.
Yes.
That might sound like something that the Didcot Charity Hub look at. So just to explain, so one of the things that we found when we started Powerhouse 4 years ago was that charities and community groups do need funding, very much need funding, but many of them also needed other forms of support. And so we've been trying to introduce other things like some professional mentoring and things like support on governance. The governance support is the Didcot Charity Hub. So that may be a conversation which is run by Lucinda, who's online. So that might be a conversation you want to have with Lucinda. So it could well be something, I'll leave you, it's not really a project that you're going to find is going to be eligible, I think, for Powerhouse, because I think it's going to be very difficult to demonstrate impact on beneficiaries by improving your governance. It's so indirect.
Yeah.
The Didcot Charity Hub, I think, could be, depending what Lucinda thinks, could be a very good way to go.
Yeah, the governance was part of the sort of review process because I in my other life I work a lot with charities with funders assessing bids and things, but it's also sort of helping with their capacity as well. They're getting to that point where they're doing very well and they just need extra support with the day-to-day logistics. But I'll have a chat with Lucinda and see if there's another.
Yeah.
I think from the sound of it, this isn't the pot for them.
Yes, I mean, the other place I would point you to, or indeed any others of you, I would point you to is Charity Mentors. So Charity Mentors is a whole group of, people with enormous professional experience who for free will mentor, a CEO or chair of a charity over a 3-month period, just providing, encouragement, support, helping with strategic thinking or helping with a particular problem that you have. It's a completely free resource within Oxfordshire. I was a charity mentor for about 10 years, and charity mentors work really hard for it. So that's quite separate from Powerhouse, but it might also be, Claire, that would be a good place to go look.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem. Joe, I think you're the next hand. Oh, classic hard can't unmute problems. Oh,
Got it.
oh
Okay,
yes, there you
sorry,
go.
thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, my name's Jo Even. I'm a trustee at Survivor Space Oxfordshire, which was until very recently Ozark, the Oxfordshire Rape Crisis Centre. We've rebranded, everyone said it, our Survivor Space Oxfordshire. And obviously, our base is in Oxford. We only have one base at the moment. But I think I'm right in saying I think we're the only rape crisis and sexual assault support service in the whole of Oxfordshire. So presumably that would help us fall inside your sort of geographical eligibility criteria. And I've had a look, and I don't think Didcot has a specific service for itself. So hopefully that would be the kind of thing you meant by if you're not actually physically in Didcot. Great.
Yes, you're absolutely spot on, Jo. So
that's good.
So for example, if you look at our grant recipients this current year, so for 2024, one of them is reducing the risk of domestic abuse, which is an Oxfordshire-wide charity. But they had not been previously working in Didcot. Nobody else was providing support for domestic abuse, and therefore that was eligible, and it wasn't duplicating anything. So entirely appropriate for you to do that. Just look carefully at those boxes that are asking about duplication.
And the second part to that question, happily the first part is yes, is that obviously one of the really important things we do is we run counselling, but our counselling space is in Oxfordshire, which we realise is a problem because for people travel to travel or whatever. And so one of the things we're doing, we have done a couple already, and we're looking to expand it in 2025, is to set up sort of satellite counselling hubs in lots of around Oxfordshire, not renting our own space, but using community spaces, but to run our counselling. And I hope one of those is going to be Didcot. So that would that be the kind of specific project that that we could that would be, I think, Didcot specific. So it seems quite a good fit.
So if you were sort of setting up a hub physically in Didcot, so you would make it much easier for you to demonstrate that the beneficiaries are within the powerhouse area. So that's not just Didcot, it's the surrounding villages as well. Yes.
We're trying to make it easier for people to access services.
Yes, you might want to talk to Jackie Logan at Sohar well about community space.
Yes, thank you.
Not making any promises on her.
No. We're always doing exactly that at the moment, investigating spaces we can use without having to spend money on sort of renting premises when we could use it, but making it geographically easier for survivors to access our services without having to travel. So that sounds perfect. It's very exciting, and thank you very much.
Any other questions from anyone? Yes, Anne. Can you unmute? Are you able to unmute, Anne? If you look at the bottom left of the computer, is there something like a little microphone? And if you click on that, excellent. Well done.
Am I online? Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Hello. I live in Milton Village, and I'm in the process of establishing Mums and Tots playgroup, because due to COVID, it appears that all the voluntary run playgroups have disappeared, and in this area, Milton Village and Milton Heights, there's been a lot of new development, and the young families that are moving in and have no support network. They have no were to go and meet each other, and I think we're a very isolated group, and any of us that have been a stay-at-home mum with your first child, it can be a very isolating place. And the intention is to start up the first playgroup in Milton Village. We've got permission from the Methodist Church to operate there one morning a week, and the local charity have given us £300 for equipment and basic things to get going. Now, in this day and age, nothing's as simple as it used to be, and we're looking at having to pay for insurance as well as equip it. We're paying for insurance, DBS checks, and other expenses, and we also want to open one in Milton Heights, who also don't have any facility for the young families. And so £300 has sort of gone in resources and some DBS checks, and we're wondering whether the Powerhouse could help us fully fund it in the village, get the insurance paid for, and then start to source equipment so we can do another morning in Milton Heights and bring the young families together from Milton and Milton Heights, which it's all one village, but it's very split by the A34. And Sutton Courtney's playgroup also folded during COVID, and it hasn't restarted because it's hard to get the volunteers going again when it becomes an expense for them having to pay for the DBS checks and various things.
So the one thing, Anne, I would say first off is, may I commend you for the effort, and it is a big effort, to get these groups going again. They are absolutely essential for mothers. I see Kath online right now, and who does Didcot Baby Mondays, and so she would confirm how important they are. There is a group in Oxfordshire called the Early Years Group, and I can't right now. Kath, can you remember who runs it? But it is a group of all of the sort of playgroup and early support groups across Oxfordshire, and I think they would be enormously helpful in sort of giving you the kind of support of what you need to be getting going. They're the Early Years Network, I think they're called. So if you can't get hold of them, come back to me and I'll be able to give you their contact details. So they would be very helpful. If you have formed, it is possible that you would be eligible for one of our small grants at the discretion of the grants panel, but you wouldn't be eligible for a normal Powerhouse grant, but we do have these small grants that are up to £500. So that's a possibility. But again, you would need to check whether you've sort of come together as a group. And OCF, again, I'd get in touch with Sarah at OCF. Perhaps, Susanna, you could put Sarah's email address into the chat, just to check whether the way that you're formed at the moment sort of is a good enough group to be able to apply for that. Does that make sense? But I would encourage you as well to sort of get the knowledge from other people. There were lots of groups that went under in Oxfordshire during COVID that all had to restart again. And the Early Years Network Oxfordshire has all of that. It exists to try to support people so that you're not trying to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, well, I am an early years teacher, and one of the other volunteers is also an early years teacher. So we do have some experience in setting up playgroups and the like, but it would always be helpful to have some other experts on board.
Absolutely. Or, or even where there's grants available or anything like that.
Yeah, lovely.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Or anything in the chat at all that we need to answer?
Elizabeth, could I come in with a question?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just wondering how open the fund is to kind of repeat applications. I'm aware that you've been very generous in your support of Train over the last couple of years, that the projects that you've been funding have been successful and would like to see them continue. I know a lot of grant makers are keener on startups than they are on sustenance, and I just kind of wondered whether the nature of the fund seems that it applies quite well to projects that you funded in the past, and whether you'd be open to that.
Yeah, so I think you may have joined Ben after I was talking about this bit, but the answer is that yes, we are open to repeat grants, basing it on previous performance, obviously. It doesn't necessarily have to be a completely new thing every time, but coming down the tracks, for anyone that has had grants a number of years, which definitely applies to Train, is beginning to say, okay, what's the longitudinal impact? We may well be beginning, so you might want to be thinking about that, of instead of saying this year it's achieved this, but actually over 4 years, if you were successful this year, or 3 years, what actually has this enabled us to do, or following some of those young people as they progress through on the journey. As indeed Powerhouse is going to have to start thinking about, impact over 5 years, not just over 1 year. So you might want to be thinking about that in terms of presenting as good a case as possible for repeat funding. It is always a balance, as you say, between the new, shiny, exciting project, a charity we haven't supported before, or, bringing in a resource and filling a gap, versus the continuity and consistency that can be achieved by year-on-year grants.
Amazing. Thank you. That's a really helpful response. And yes, apologies, I was a little late to the
Not at
meeting.
all. Not at all. Anything else from anyone? Sort of last chance? Okay.
Can I just jump in just very quickly to say there were a couple of links in the chat just about about where to find details about how to look at the criteria, but also a link, I think that was probably specifically for you, Joe, about a potential venue as well. So do have a quick look at the chat.
Thank you. That's so helpful. I will. Thank you.
None at all. Well, thank you all very much indeed for taking the time over lunchtime to join this call. We look forward to your applications and hope the rest of the day goes well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.